understand our current understanding about NEP, at the same time our thoughts and beliefs, right? So I request all of you to please participate in this. It will help you to know where you stand, and this session will also give you more insights into it. So please key in your WhatsApp number. The link has been shared by my colleagues. Please key in your WhatsApp number that you used during your registration. Key in your email ID. The first question is, how would you rate your understanding of the changes that are introduced by the NEP 2020? You can be honest about it. We'll have no names while we see the real-time data, but we'll get an understanding of where all of us stand. And today's session is a learning towards it. So I have no understanding of it. I have a basic understanding of it. I have complete understanding of it. The next question is, do you think this NEP 2020 will improve how students learn? Yeah, the next question. You think that will it improve the way students are learning? There are three options you can choose from it. The next question is, how confident are you in identifying students facing academic and behavioral challenges? Not confident, somewhat confident, very confident. How confident are you in supporting these children with challenges? And the next question is, how effective are you in collaborating with colleagues, parents, and other stakeholders to support students with challenges? You need improvement in the way you collaborate, you're somewhat effective, or you are very effective. Once you are done submitting these 5 questions, please click on the submit button. Yes. Thank you so much for participating. We'll move ahead now. So when we do that, we got an understanding of where we stand. What is the position of our understanding of NEP 2020? Let me take you through it. The National Education Policy 2020 is one of the first education policy of this 21st century, right? It is one of its kind, and the main aim of it is to address the gaps in the learning levels of children. What is the primary objective of NEP 2020 is that no child should be left behind. It has come in to transform the education system. It wants to provide students with high quality education where they will be equipped with the skills that all of you told to me in the Energizer by the host, those skills of the 21st century, so they can be more ready for the future. So that is what is the primary objective of NEP 2020. And while it's addressing the gaps in the Indian education, it has brought in some reforms. And these reforms are from the early childhood care going on till the higher education. What is essential for us to know is, while we are talking about NEP 2020, the key features that have come in. What are these key features that are going to transform the education and improve outcomes of children? This is important for us to know. So these are some key features that I'll take you through about NEP 2020. NEP 2020 has brought in the restructuring of the academic structure, how important it is to prioritize FLN at the foundational stage. We'll talk about competency-based education, and then we'll talk about holistic and continual assessment. Taking you through each of these, we'll start off by understanding what is the restructuring that is happening in the academic structure. You all would agree that while we were studying as students, we have all been following the structure, right? There's pre-primary, then there's class 1 to 10, and there is plus 2, 11th and 12th, right? Now what NEP is aiming at is it is dividing the school years into 4 stages. So you have the foundational stage, which is the pre-primary, 3 to 6 years, and the preparatory stage where the child is class 3 to 5. Then there's the middle stage where there's class 6 to 8, and secondary stage is 9 to 12. A lot of emphasis has been put on this foundational stage, which is from pre-primary to including class 1 and 2. Now, you might wonder as teachers, why is this shift happening? This shift is happening keeping in mind that cognitive development of child takes place, right? A lot of emphasis has been laid on the cognitive development based on which these stages have been developed. The other thing is, when you talk about the foundational stage or the pre-primary level, We know that different schools have different curriculums. This has come in to bring about standardization, to lay the foundation strong. Standardization in the curriculum, in the lesson plan, so that all students are at par in the foundational stage to move ahead to the next level and next stages. So, this is the reason of restructuring and introducing stages into the NEP. Let me tell you a little more about these stages. The foundational stage comprises of 5 years of a child's life, starting from pre-primary to class 2. What happens here is this stage completely focuses on building the strong foundation where foundational literacy and numeracy skills are built through play-based methods. Right? Play-based methods and activity-based learnings are a part of the foundational stage. As the child moves ahead, along with language development that is prime and foundational stage, in the preparatory stage, it aims more at the holistic development of the child. It is more to make the child curious, include discovery based learning, activity based, interactions are done in the classroom so that the child develops holistically. Moving on to the middle stage, which is from class 6 to 8, there's a shift from the rote learning method, right? There's more focus on experiential learning, learning by doing, making the concepts understood to the child. And as they progress to secondary stage, there's a choice of subjects that is given to them based on their skills, based on their abilities. So this is what is about the structural change that has been brought in by the NEP 2020. The next thing that NEP 2020 has brought in is prioritizing FLN at the foundational stage. So NEP places a lot of importance on the FLN skills. FLN is the foundational literacy and numeracy skills. So it says that FLN is the building block of learning. It says that they are fundamental skills that will form the base for all the other learning in higher grades or the advanced learning that the child does. So when we talk about FLN, you might wonder what exactly it is. So when I talk about foundational literacy, they are nothing but the basic skills a child needs to be good at reading and writing. How is a child able to read simple sentences, understand and comprehend simple text? How can the child communicate effectively? These are the basics. So that is foundational literacy. When it comes to foundational numeracy, they are nothing but the basic skills that are there for a child to solve higher level mathematical problems. So foundational numeracy skills involves understanding the concepts of number sense, the counting, number recognition, basic addition, subtraction, and some problem solving skills. So these are what foundational literacy and numeracy mean. So when you might be hearing about this, you might wonder why is so much emphasis there on FLN in the early years? I'm sure you as teachers would have read articles and known and come across that in students, the most critical period for their development is their initial 8 years. So NEP has recognized that importance and has told that we can lay the foundation strong in the child's early years so that when the foundation is strong, the learning also aids and it improves as the child is put in for advanced learning. While talking about this, let me share this importance of FLN with the help of an example. As you can see here, a building structure where there are strong foundational skills. If the foundation of the building is strong, right, the plinth is strong, the base is strong, and the building is built on it, you would see that the structure is strong. Agree? When the structure is strong, the building survives more. On the other hand, if the base itself is not solid, is not strong, and it has cracks, going above in the above floors, you would see that the building may be a little shaky, it may not be strong. Same applies to children's foundation. If the foundation is strong in primary and pre-primary years, you will see them surviving well through middle school, secondary school, and going forward in college and job as well. But if their foundation in pre-primary and primary is not strong, they're not knowing the basics, then it is going to impact their advanced learning, that is in middle and secondary, and also impact their college life and their employment, right? You agree? So this is the importance of strong foundation skills. So when we see that these foundation skills are not there, you will notice that the child is not able to perform grade level if the foundation is not strong. So advanced learning, curriculum in higher grades, going in fifth, eighth, it becomes very, very difficult for the child. And when the child is not able to have the basic grade level reading, writing, and math skills, it leads to FLN crisis. Right? If a child is not able to perform grade level, there are challenges that the child is going to face in basic reading, writing, and arithmetic skills. So even Nipun Bharat says that along with NEP, even Nipun Bharat lays down priorities where it states FLN crisis must be addressed in students. So if the foundation is strong, the child will be able to progress better. Now, while I'm talking about FLN crisis, it is difficult for us to picturize and understand. So I'll take you a little detail into it. How does this FLN crisis show up in our classrooms? So the difficulties that students face, we understand that they'll show up as reading challenges, writing challenges, and arithmetic challenges. But how exactly? We'll be discussing now. Can you go into the chat box and tell me, do you think every student in your classroom reads at the expected grade level? You're dealing with so many students in a class, right? Do you think that each of these students is going to read at the expected grade level? No, I see a lot of you saying no in the chat box. So, can you tell me what are the reading challenges that you have come across in the classrooms? What are some of the reading challenges that you've noticed? Comprehension, no vocabulary, pronunciation, identification, letter sound association is slow. Yes. Fluency, punctuation marks, basic understanding is not there. Great. So you would see that they have this difficulty in identifying letters. They would be reading slowly. Letter sound association and knowledge would be poor. They will be struggling to maintain interest while reading. They do not know where to pause, as some of you are saying in the chat box. They'll be skipping words while reading, finding word meanings, vocabulary is poor, and they're not able to understand what they are reading. So, a lot of you have actually summed up these points in the chat box. Moving on to the other challenges. The other question I would like to ask all of you is, do you think every student in your classroom writes at the expected grade level? Do you think writing will be at the expected grade level? No. So, how do these writing challenges show up in the classroom? How will the writing challenges be noticed in children? Their handwriting may be poor, slow writing, okay, letter formation, spelling error, spelling writing speed, okay, sentence formation, dictation they will not be able to do, punctuation. Yes, and all of you are saying in the chat box, to sum it up, they might write as mirror images, they'll be writing extremely slow, handwriting may not be legible, they might not be using the appropriate words, they would not be able to write within the spaces that they have to, they won't be able to put thoughts on paper. We come across such children, right? They're very good orally, but putting thoughts on paper is a challenge. Difficulty copying from the board, and lack of variety in the sentences that they come up with. So this is not a comprehensive list, but this gives us a general idea about how writing challenges would show up in the class. Coming to math. Do you think every student in your classroom does math at the expected grade level? No, I see a lot of you saying that. So how do these arithmetic challenges show up in the classroom? What are the math difficulties you're noticing in children? Calculation would be a problem. They won't be able to do multiplication, addition. They won't be understanding the word problems. Formulas they won't know how to apply. They would copy incorrectly. For number sense, okay, difficulty in understanding the questions. Multi-step calculation will be a challenge. Yes, so you would notice that in children they'll have difficulty with basic math operations. Time and direction will be a challenge. They won't be able to understand and solve word problems or grade level math topics. They'll be consistently scoring poor marks in math. Counting, number sense, like most of you are saying in the chat box, would be very difficult for these children. Yes, so this is how arithmetic challenges show up. A few pointers. So when we talk about reading, writing, arithmetic challenges, you've also come across attention and behavior challenges in the classroom. So these attention and behavior challenges also impact how the child is going to perform academically. Even the reverse is true. So if there are poor academic outcomes, the child could be distracted, attention challenges could be there, and also it may show up in the form of behavioral challenges. So do you see that children in your class have different attention spans? Yes. So when we talk about attention challenges, how do these look like in the classroom? How do attention challenges look like in your classroom? So when you look at children, when you look around, okay, they're distracted, they disturb the class, they're not able to focus, they're not thorough with the concept, they start talking with others, easily carried away, lot of distractions. Yes, you would see that these children are zoned out in class sometimes, they switch between tasks, they tend to misplace things, they'll delay your assignment submissions, they'll struggle with completing their tasks in time, they'll always have a messy and unorganized desk, they are restless, anxious, they face problems in following rules and instructions. Yes, difficulty to concentrate. I see a lot of you telling me in the chat box. So this is how some of the attention challenges may show up. So talking to you about the behavior challenges. Do you see various behavioral challenges among students in the classroom?
Yes.
Yes. A lot of you are saying yes in the chat box. How do these show up? As teachers, we have come across behavioral challenges. How do they look like in your classroom? Not following rules, they are pushing, they are stubborn, they are rude, troublesome, arrogant. Yes, a lot of you are saying in the chat box. So you'll see when it comes to behavior challenges, they won't be able to work in teams. They might be very aggressive physically and verbally. They can't maintain conversations. They're not aware of emotions. They don't want to listen. They would be sometimes sad. Their self control is not there. They might be very impulsive. They'll disrespect their peers, their teachers. On the other hand, when it's so obvious, behavior challenges also look like when a child is very sad and depressed. They have difficulty making friends or having poor self image. These are also behavioral challenges. They are not outwardly shown, but these are something to look out for in children as well. Having discussed with lovely participation from all of you about what are the challenges that children may face, it may make us wonder what are the causes that lead to these challenges. So, when we talk about challenges, it is important to note that our children come from different socio-economic backgrounds, right? They come from different environments, their life context, the kind of parental support they have is different. So the various reasons that could be is if they could be the first generation learners. First generation learners are the means that they are the first ones in the family to get formal education. So they may not have anyone to support them. So with doubts, with challenges, it may increase when there's no support from the environment. So these are first generation learners due to which poor foundational skills could be there. Or you might have some learners who are having financial backgrounds may be a challenge for them. So the parents cannot get extra support for the child. Or some children may have developmental challenges if they have a learning disability, or they could have a tendency to develop ADHD, which is not making them focus. You will see that they are not doing at par with their peers. And some children who would have some challenges, or they're just managing to stay at the grade level because of the pandemic that all of us share faced, they might have had an increase in their learning gaps. They might have regressed in their performance. So there are different reasons because of which the child may be facing challenges. It is not always that the child does not have the IQ or the child is lazy and disinterested. So as teachers, it is also important to look into the why of the challenges. Talking so much from my end, do you teachers have a thought that yes, this situation is concerning? This situation is something that is alarming. Yes, I see that. So as educators, we know that when there are FLN crises, when we see that children are not at par with their grade level, it impacts us and it changes our role. So if we focus on the FLN and bring about improvement, it can bring about a lot of peace and happiness, and the results are going to be both for the child and the teacher. So here are some reasons why it's important to address this FLN crisis. So if you see that the foundation literacy and numeracy skills are strong in children, don't you think they'll have better grades? They'll be a lifelong learner, wanting to learn and not shy away from tasks that are given to them. They're going to be ready for the work that is coming up for them. They'll develop those skills that you all mentioned in the chat box earlier, higher order thinking skills. Because of all of this, they'll have better life outcomes. And if a child is performing well, in turn, it impacts the country's GDP positively. So these are some outcomes of FLN for students. For teachers, you would all agree with me that it makes your life as a teacher easier, because of which you'll have a rewarding classroom. You'll be more happy to teach because you see that most of the students are at grade level, and you would want to do more and more activities with them, engage them. In that process, you are creating more work ready youth. So this is the impact. If we start working on the FLN crisis, you will see positive outcomes for both you as a teacher and the student. The next key feature that will transform the education as per NEP 2020 is the competency-based education and vocational learning. Remember, during our school days, sometimes it's like there's a syllabus, that syllabus must be completed. The child should cover that particular content every year. So before NEP, that was the state. So every year, this is class for syllabus, the teacher always focused on working on the content. Sometimes children also engaged in rote learning because that was the way they need to get thorough conceptual understanding. After NEP, it is known that NEP states there are certain competencies which the child has to master at every stage. Foundational stage has 67 competencies, which is going to make the child ready for the preparatory stage. So these are basic literacy, numeracy skills, motor skills, social abilities. Each of these areas has a set competency. So once the child acquires these skills, the child is ready for the next. So there's no more emphasis on rote learning. It's making sure that the child is ready and prepared for the next stage. So building competencies is what it focuses on, and to ensure that the child is learning what is taught. So even with the NCF, that is the National Curriculum Framework for Secondary Education, states that the school education should not only teach content and curriculum, should also prepare students to understand the world around them. With this, we are going to make the students have employability skills, right? So that they can contribute for the country's economy. This also brings in the concept of vocational education by NEP 2020, which says that teaching them certain life skills which are essential for their well-being will be implemented, and there'll be choice of subjects that students can choose from for training, and it can be as per their choice. So this is going to be implemented across the stages as per NEP 2020. What is this vocational training going to do, or vocational education when integrated? It will again ensure that they are prepared for the 21st century skills so that they can move ahead and progress ahead with these skills. The other reform that NEP 2020 brings in is holistic and continual assessment. We now no longer have to wait for the 10th and 12th class results to know how the child is performing. With the introduction of NEP 2020, there are going to be multiple checkpoints which will help us to know that yes, the child needs support, the child is facing challenges. So these checkpoints are going to be at each stage for our students, which will help us to get a complete understanding of the needs of the child. So what we have spoken about so far is what reforms NEP 2020 has brought in. It is from the government. Now it's our turn as teachers. What is it that we can do? So that brings us to the next section, where we'll talk about the upskilling of ourselves and how we could do that to improve outcomes of children. We have understood how big this learning crisis is, and we have understood why it's important to solve it. Now, we'll see how we as teachers can contribute to improve the outcomes of children who are facing challenges. And you can do that at two levels. One is at the school level and one is at the classroom level, where you as teachers are more actively involved. At the school level, the FLN goals can be a part of the curriculum across all classes. There could be certain budget that is set for ensuring that FLN skills are built, certain resources are incorporated, hiring support staff who can support children facing challenges like special educators, and ensuring that parent engagement is also looked into. Then comes at the classroom level. So you as teachers, it's important that you find out if all students in your classrooms are meeting the grade level foundational literacy and numeracy goals. If not, it's very important for us to allocate time for building these skills. Let's dive a little deeper into how you can support children at the classroom level. So this is step one. What you as teachers could do firstly is to identify students who are facing these challenges. Imagine that there's a class of 40 students, right? We now, in that class of 40, need to identify what kind of support they need. So, as teachers, what we could do is you will keep a tab on their test results. How are they performing academically? How are their marks? What are the common errors that they are making? You'll see what patterns of mistakes. Are they understanding the concept? Which concept is being difficult for them? Test results will help you know. Then engage in classroom observations. Your observations are important, they matter. You will understand how engaging the child is. Is the child participating in the classroom activities or not? Is the child following your instructions or not? Are they asking doubts coming forward? So, making sure that these observations are in place will also help you get an important information about the child. Then, you can conduct some FLN assessments. They are to know the basic competencies of reading, writing, and math in the child. So when we talk about this, what is important is when we are going to do FLN assessments in a few slides, I'll also take you through what these FLN assessments mean. So when you understand that as a teacher, you can engage in keeping a tab of their test results, classroom observations, and FLN assessments, you will have a set of children who are performing at grade level across these things. So these are children who require no additional support. On the other hand, you will have a set of children who will be achieving inconsistent and borderline marks, right? Always in their performance of test results. There'll be some children who would require attention as per your observation. They'll be struggling in some areas. And when you do the FLN assessments to understand the grade level basic skills, you will see that they only meet one grade below that. So these are children who require moderate level of support. You will also have children in your classroom, right, who will be consistently scoring poor marks. They can't even catch up with extra attention that you're given sometimes. And they'll be further below their grade level. And these children require intense level of support. So as teachers, it is essential that we understand our classroom and we group them based on the level of the FLN challenge they are facing. FLN is foundational literacy and numeracy skills. So when we talk about grouping them, you will group them in three ways. One level is they require no additional support. The other group is students who require moderate level of support. And the third group is students who require intense level of support. So now let me tell you how you can conduct a simple FLN assessment to group your students. It's one of the ways in which you can group them, right, as we discussed. Now let me take you through in a little detail to understand about these FLN assessments, how you can conduct as teachers. So when you talk about FLN assessment, they can be conducted separately for literacy and numeracy. You can allocate 5 minutes for each student. How you could do that is I'll share with you with the example of grade 2. So imagine that you're a teacher from grade 2. You will ask certain grade level questions, basic questions. For example, in grade 2, it would be like a reading question. If I have to ask, I give them a simple sentence The cat is on the mat. Is my child able to read that? Then I go to check the writing skills. Write a sentence about your favorite animal. Is the child able to put their thoughts on paper, grade level? You can also ask them about their oral skills, comprehension, understanding. Explain the meaning of mountain and ocean. So if these children are able to answer correctly, you will group them as being at the grade level and they require no additional support. If they are not able to answer, you understand that they are performing below grade level. Agree? If they are not able to do those grade level tasks. So now I'm going to ask a question that is below their grade level. Right? So from asking the question that I asked previously, I'll ask a little more easier questions. I'll ask them to read common sight words instead of a sentence. I can ask them to copy a sentence instead and ask them the meaning of a more simpler word that they might be more exposed to, like a ball. If they are able to do it, it means that they are one grade below the actual grade level that they are at. It implies that they need moderate level of support. If they are unable to answer, it means they are further below the grade level. Right? They may be 2 grades below or more, and they need intense level of support from you as teachers or in general from all the stakeholders that will be involved. So as teachers, step 1 is identification, which is very, very important. In identification, you also learned to group them. Once you have those groups, it's important that we as teachers are there to improve their outcomes and implement strategies. And for the strategy implementation, it's important that we upskill ourselves. So even NEP 2020 places a lot of emphasis on the continuous professional development of us as teachers. Why is that so? Because if we are always learning new tools, new techniques, new strategies, we are better able to support the needs of students. We are better able to identify the challenges. So it's very important that we keep upskilling ourselves, learn new ways, new strategies, because what works for one child may not work for the other. So you look out for new things. So as teachers, engage in continuous professional development so you are equipped with the latest knowledge and strategies to ensure and improve the outcomes of children with challenges. So when it comes to understanding and upskilling, there are a lot of evidence-based models that are present around the world to address the academic and behavioral challenges that children are facing. So these are some of the evidence-based models. One of it we have already learned, that is the RTI, the response to intervention model, that is grouping them in 3 levels, grouping them by no additional support, moderate support, intense support. Then you also have the others where you, the Howard MC model, which says that parents are active involvers. Then you will have the dual capacity framework. There's STAR, where you have teaching at the right level. So these are certain frameworks that you can equip yourselves to upskill. So let me share one of the strategies that Ability has designed for teachers that you can use in your classrooms to help these children improve. You all would agree with me when I say that our aim as educators is to bridge the FLN gap that children are having. We want to reduce the number of students who are performing below grade level. We want to increase the number of students who are at grade level, right? That's one of the major aims of us as educators. We want all children to be at par. So that's our aim. While doing that, what you could do is you can implement specific group focused activities in the classroom. So you can, once you have grouped and you know that there are children who require no additional support, you will engage them in activities that will help them to master their skills and you will cover grade level concepts for them. But for students who are at moderate level, you are going to provide targeted support. You will give an activities that are a little more easier than the grade level. It will be mostly 1 year below the grade level concept. And for those who are at intense level, your focus is on foundation building. You should ensure that they have the basic skills. So the activities are very easy and they are further below the grade level. as a teacher, in a class of 40 minutes that we have, we will allocate some 10 minutes to ensure that each of these group is improving. So the purpose of these activities is going to have an impact on all of these. So when you talk about those at grade level, you're helping them to strengthen the concept of grade level. At those who are 1 year below grade level, you're providing a targeted support so that they can reach to grade level. And for those who are further below, your aim as teachers is to build their foundation right and strong. While you are implementing activities for building foundation in children who are further below grade level, what you are doing in that process, you are practicing and building the basics. You might wonder what others are going to do at that point of time. What will the other students do? Let me tell you that the others, those who are 1 year below grade level, they'll also be learning. They'll be strengthening the basic concepts. And for those who are at grade level, it's a revision for them and they are having fun to strengthen the concept again. Again, if you are implementing in your class targeted activities, your aim is to bridge the grade level gap. When you implement those activities, for those who are further below, they are getting exposed to higher concepts. What is it that they would learn? What is coming next? And for those who are at grade level, it's again like a revision for them. And the more they revise, the more strengthened they are in a particular concept. And you might wonder, when I do grade level activities, what will those children who need additional support do? Yes, while you're implementing the activities at grade level, students at grade level are learning new concepts, they are mastering those grade level skills. Children who are grade below, they are getting exposed to grade level concepts, right? They understand what is coming next.